Good morning. It is May 31st in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada area, about 5:30 in the morning, just outside of the farmyard here, and sunrise is happening. We finished seeding most crops about 2 days ago, finally, just a little bit late for our area, and except today, we still have about 4 hectares of hemp seed left to do. Right here is our farmyard. We live on a country road. Here is our house. And now we will just go into our farmyard to the right here. This is our workshop. It's a very small workshop, but it does what we need to do. In the farmyard again, this is our house. We live in the countryside, about 10 kilometers away from a village and about 30 kilometers away from the city of Winnipeg, which is the capital of Manitoba. Sunrise is just happening right now. No, we're not combining in the end of May, but as part of the farm I have a small spraying business, custom spraying business, and the back tires of the combines are needed to be installed onto the sprayer. So today we have to take the tires off and put them on the sprayer because we're just starting to do some spraying on the crops that were planted already, and we want to spray glyphosate before they come up, so we have to act quickly because crops usually come up. Here's the planter. It's a very unusual project we have today. We're growing 4 hectares of hemp that gets used for CBD oil production. In the background again you see the workshop, and just going around the yard there's still some machinery that needs some repair. Here's a storage area that used to be a chicken barn, and then these orange pieces are plastic spouts that go on the grain auger. We have a small business called Never Spill Spout. And then just going around the yard, an airplane, which just, I don't know, it's more for fun than anything. Our water storage tank, the custom sprayer that we use. The custom sprayer has been one of the best machines in our yard because it's a very old machine and it's very simple. So it either works mechanically, or if it's broken then we can repair it. It's not like some of the newer machinery that has lots of electronics that gives us problems for just no reasons. Then the little water tank for a trailer that we use, and the fuel storage, and this is one of our grain trucks, and then of course a utility tractor. Many farmers buy grain trucks that used to be old semi trucks. This one here has got 1.4 million kilometers, so it's retired from the trucking industry, but it can still be quite a good grain truck. And I named my farm Gerher Rodina Hobby Farm. Rodina, of course, is because it's the place where I live and where we come from. And Hobby Farm is that I have for over 30 years enjoyed farming quite a lot. And I want it to be fun. At the same time, hobbies don't always make money. And I've been very lucky that we've pretty much made money almost every year on the farm. Some years have not been as good as others, of course, but in general it's been profitable all the years. It is a very small farm for Canadian standards. Well, in our area it's an average size farm. It's about 500 hectares. We plant spring crops except winter wheat, which is the only fall crop that we plant. And the crops include spring wheat, oats, rapeseed or canola. This year was the first year we seeded some sunflowers. And hemp. I've been growing hemp for a number of years. And of course we also grow soybeans. This is again a little bit about our fertilizer technology that we talked about earlier. This inside of the truck has 3 separate compartments, and in one compartment is the seed, The other compartment is nitrogen, and the third compartment is the phosphate. This is the back of the truck. You can see the 3 compartments. Right now they're all filled with leftover phosphate from seeding because we just finished. So normally there would be, for example, nitrogen here, seed here, and phosphate in the back of the compartment. This allows us to put all 3 ingredients into the seeder and put all the nutrition on at seeding time. In the back of the shed we have some glyphosate that we purchase, and then this time of year we start putting it on before the plants come up. This is a draper header for our combine. It's about 12 meters wide, and you can see there's some pipes on there, and the idea of the pipes is that there's air flowing in there, and the air blows the soybeans into the knife to do a better job cutting. One crop I forgot to mention, we also grow some corn. The corn is non-GMO corn, and it gets used in our area by a dairy farmer, and that is a pretty good crop for us. It is of course very late. We harvest it in November. Sometimes farmers don't even harvest it until the next year. This is our grain card, and well, there's just a flag that says agriculture more than ever. Right now we're in the backyard. This is the area where we have grain storage. Some of the small bins, of course, are used for fertilizer, or if there's some leftover seed or something like this. This is just regular grain storage. With about 500 hectares of land, I deliver about half of the crop right away at harvest time to the elevators in the area, and about half the crop gets stored in the bins, and then also the corn gets delivered immediately to the grain farmer, to the dairy farmer, as high moisture grain corn. Right here we see a dryer. I did not have a dryer until 2 years ago, which worked actually quite well without a dryer, except because I was growing hemp. I needed to dry it, and my hemp is organic hemp, so I needed to have a dryer that's organically certified. Here in this area, most farmers that do not have corn do not have a grain dryer, but now a lot of farmers have corn and they all buy grain dryers. Here is the grain dryer, which is fired by propane. So we do not have natural gas hookup, so we have to buy propane. Propane costs about 2 times more money than natural gas. And these are some fertilizer storage bins. In the backyard, just going around. My farm used to be a more or less zero tillage farm, which meant that we would not cultivate in the fall time or in the springtime and seed directly in. That works very well if you have certain crops, like after rapeseed we do not have to cultivate, after soybeans we do not have to cultivate, and after grain we do not have to cultivate if the straw has been baled away and there's not too much residue. We get about 3 or so tons per hectare of wheat, sometimes 4-ish, and with winter wheat, actually we usually get about 4 tons per hectare of wheat and maybe 5 tons of winter wheat. And that's too much straw for us to work in. So our neighbors who have dairy farms, they bale the straw often. They like to do that. Since part of my farm has become organic farm, it's become much more complicated. I'm doing much more tillage and bought a whole bunch of machinery. So 3 years ago, before organic farming, there would have been here hardly any machines. For example, right here is a row crop cultivator, which cultivates in between the rows, because of course you can't spray chemicals. Then you have all those weeds, and then you spray in between the rows. This is an old liquid fertilizer storage tank that we don't use anymore. This is an old air seeder that I bought because I was going to get into the business of building air seeders, but that did not work out really well yet. Maybe this summer, when I can't travel anywhere with COVID-19, I have lots of time on the farm to build things. This is a disc tillage machine. I bought it for the purpose of cultivating corn stubble after the fall, because I didn't like burning the corn stubble. And it does not work really wonderful for doing corn stubble. It works really well for doing grain to make this field smooth, but in a no-tillage system we don't really need it anyways. This is for cultivation after combining. It's a chisel plow. It has a 30 centimeter spacing and is sort of the most important tillage tool after combining if you need to till. But like I said before, most of the farm is no-till, and therefore I can seed straight in if I manage the straw very well after the combine. In the background here you see a pig farm that we own 45% of, and this is the yard where I grew up in. So I didn't grow up away from very far. I didn't get very far. This is sort of my newest pride and joy. I made, for me, a big investment in a large tractor. It's a versatile tractor which is made right here in Winnipeg, about 40 kilometers away from here. Now, of course, as you probably know, Versatile company is owned by Rosselmash company of Rostov in Rostov-na-Don. And this is a air drill, a disc air drill. It is a zero-till disc air drill. It is made by Flexicoil, but Flexicoil has been bought by Case IH. So all those machines have been made in Canada. I switched to disc air drill this year from a shank drill, and the reason is because I can seed into more straw without plugging up. So if there's sometimes little piles of straw that plug up the shank seeding machine, the disc seeding machine should be able to go right through it. And also the disc seeding machine has a very narrow spacing. This one is 19 centimeter spacing, which is narrow for us on the prairies here in Western Canada. The narrow spacing is important for us, especially in organic farming, because we want to have this less weeds growing between the rows. So the more rows we have, the better it is for us. I'm going to start the tractor now and lift up the side of the wing so that we can look underneath to see where the seed and the fertilizer come out. So again, this is the disc drill, and most disc drills are what we call single chute. They have one pipe that comes down and puts the fertilizer and the seed mixed together. Of course, if the fertilizer and the seed are mixed together and there's too much fertilizer, then it can hurt the seed. On this disc drill here, there's two pipes coming out. So right here is where the seed comes out, it goes to the right, and this is where the fertilizer comes out at the front here. So this, if there's enough separation, then we can apply all the nitrogen and the phosphate at the same time as seeding. And typically we would put about 100 kilograms of actual nitrogen and about, so 100 kilograms of actual nitrogen would be about 300 kilograms per hectare of ammonium nitrate, or 200 kilograms per hectare of urea. And then also we put about 40 actual kilograms of phosphate, which would be close to about 90 kilograms of ammophos. As you can see on the seeder, there is 3 separate meter compartments, 1, 2, and 3. And as is where we would have the 3 tanks, and then apply the fertilizer inside the tank in each separate compartment. Okay, so we're still behind the yard here. This field was seeded last year to a cover crop, which meant that as soon as the oat was combined in late August, then I seeded immediately a crop zero-till in to grow some mostly grain, but also some peas and some mustards to improve the soil. Also, by having a cover crop, then you will have less weeds coming up, and hopefully the fields will be cleaner in the future. And of course the whole thing is also zero-till. I'm just getting into cover crop, and this is also why I bought that air drill with the discs. I want to do some custom seeding for other farmers in the area for cover crops, because there's lots of interest. One of the things with cover crop, of course, is you have to do it almost immediately after combining, because then the soil still has a little bit of moisture in it, and then it doesn't dry out, and the seeds can still germinate. If you wait a week and finish combining, by that time the soil might be dry and not grow. So here's a test strip that we did, and the main idea of the test strip here was to find out if the canola if the 2 seed tubes that come from the air drill that we just looked at are placing the seeds separately. So instead of putting fertilizer in one tank and seed in the other tank, I put rapeseed in one tank and wheat in the other tank. And we can see here is sort of the row of the wheat, and here is sort of the row of the rapeseed, and they are separate. So the placement of the seed and the fertilizer would be separate. Also, you can see that this canola is very much affected by flea beetles that are eating on there, which is not good, because the seed was treated and the flea beetles were not supposed to eat the canola or rapeseed, and that means that on the real canola field I have to check and probably spray the field around the outside for sure to control the flea beetles. And on here you can see that right here, again, this is the 31st of May. However, yesterday morning there was a frost and the canola actually got froze. So I was checking the canola field yesterday, and I might even have to reseed canola field. So basically this is what the seeding looks like with my new drill. It's nothing is ever perfect, but it's pretty good, and I think I can make that drill work very well for me for the rest of my farming career. And this is one machine more here that we use for straw management. We call it a heavy harrow. This is a Morris heavy harrow, and it really scratches up the soil really hard and moves the straw around. So if your combine is not able to spread the straw and the chaff very well, the heavy harrow will loosen up the chaff and spread the straw, and therefore we can still do zero-till seeding. So now this is a little bit of a very mixed introduction to the farm here. It is a little bit of confusing because it's a, like I said, 500 hectare farm, so it's not really very large. At the same time, it is also a zero-till farm. It is partly an organic farm, and I'm at the same time also a chemical applicator. So I do very many different things. It's not like I'm in favor of organic in some way that not organic is not good, but at the same time I'm trying to learn how to make all these things work together a little bit. And also because the farm is very small and I like the big machinery, and I work with 2 other farmers that have probably another 400 hectares, and they have no machinery at all, and we do all their work on the farm. So we seed for them, we cultivate for them, we spray for them, and we harvest for them also. Good. I hope this gives a little bit of an introduction of what's going on here in Manitoba, Canada. Oh yes, one more thing. A few years ago I bought a bunch of solar panels. They're supposed to be regenerative energy. And of course it was a little bit of a stupid idea, because in Manitoba almost all of the electric energy comes from hydroelectric water dams, which of course means that there is really not very much of a carbon or CO2 production from hydroelectric water dams. So now I bought these really expensive solar panels that are replacing other renewable energy. Would have been much better if I would have been in Europe, where they have nuclear power plants or natural gas power plants. But anyways, I thought I would try something like this, and probably wouldn't do it again. So the spraying we just did is for a customer on a field where he seeded canola or rapeseed. The rapeseed did not germinate very well, and then there was also a frost, so it was very poor germination. And the bigger problem is that there is resistant wild oats here. So all these grass plants that you see here are resistant to things like phenoxyprop, that kind of group, I don't know what it's called in Ukrainian, and possibly even to this other group of sulfonylurea. And therefore the farmer decided that we should spray whatever little canola rapeseed is growing, like this one here, and kill them all with glyphosate, and then it will be reseeded later today. Also, you can see on this one here, just a black little beetle just ran away. These are flea beetles that eat canola in a very small stage, and there also was a frost here. So he's going to try reseeding it again. We'll talk about the sprayer a little bit. This is the most profitable machine on my farm. We've been doing custom spraying since 1997 with it. Basically it's an old truck, four-wheel drive truck, and a sprayer was put on and a cap from a combine was put on. The sprayer itself is made in the United States, and this one here is 40 meters wide approximately, or just shy of 40 meters. I like the suspended boom, but the suspended boom, as you can see in the video, is very wobbly, so you have to drive very steady, otherwise your application is not uniform. Also, the suspended boom is really hard to control the height on, and of course the higher you go, the more drift you will have and hurt other people's properties. So it takes a bit of getting used to, and also goes slow. Our normal travel speed is about 15 to 17 kilometers per hour. If we are going around some sensitive areas, we might slow down to 5 kilometers an hour. And of course, the nice thing when you slow down, the rate controller controls the pressure of the sprayer, and therefore you have a much lower pressure. And then when the lower pressure is lower, of course, you also have less drift. We used to have electronic controls here to try to automatically control the height. That did not work very well, because the wheelbase of this sprayer is fairly narrow, and we have a lot of drainage ditches in our area. So if the sprayer dips, let's say in the right side, into this ditch, the boom will go down really fast, and the automatic height control system does not have time to compensate for it, and the boom will hit the ground. So now, as we approach a ditch like this, we will already, before the ditch, raise the boom up to make it not hit the ground as it goes into the ditch. Okay. This sprayer is in 3 sections: a left, a right, and a center. The only thing that costs a little bit of money on this sprayer is the nozzles. We usually exchange the nozzles every 2 years, because nozzles apparently wear out and give an uneven spraying pattern. We use what we call the air induction nozzle. So on the nozzle itself, there's a hole on the side where air gets sucked in, gets mixed together with air, and then comes out as a more coarse droplet and that is supposed to reduce drift. Okay, and glyphosate we usually spray at about 50 liters per hectare. Most systemic herbicides we spray at 50 liters per hectare. If we go to a contact herbicide, then we like to go up to about 100 liters per hectare. We can use the same nozzles but increase the pressure and drive slower. It's not totally ideal as far as drift is concerned, but again, as we increase the pressure, the finer droplet we will produce, and therefore we get better coverage on the plant and then better control on contact herbicides. Okay. For fungicides, we use nozzles. Okay, just back up here. These nozzles here for the herbicide are 0.2 nozzles. It's sort of a standard sizing system. Then for fungicides, we use these double nozzles. These are 0.4 nozzles. So then we spray about, about almost 200 liters per hectare. Not quite 200 liters per hectare. And these nozzles have two openings, one on the front and one on the back. So you can see the one opening on the back here, and then there's one on the front side of the nozzle also. Okay, and what that does is, of course, because it has two openings, it makes it a finer mist nozzle spray, which of course is what you want for fungicides and maybe even insecticides. So these are very nice nozzle bodies. You can just quickly turn one nozzle to the other. The third nozzle we have installed in here is a fertilizer nozzle, and it makes 3 streams of fertilizer. Actually, this one you can see better. Okay, so there's 3 holes in there. It makes three streams of fertilizer, and this gets used for winter wheat when we apply the nitrogen fertilizer in the springtime. That's as far as newer technology goes. There are some sprayers that have really fancy nozzles or systems, and what they have is they have a magnet solenoid valve on each spray nozzle, and they don't have to change the nozzle when they change the volume, but the solenoid magnet opens and closes, I don't know, several hundred times per minute, I guess, and by controlling the length of time that the nozzle is open changes your volume. So it's almost like a pulsating nozzle. That's very nice when you have a wide sprayer and you're going around in a circle, where the outside of the circle, of course, goes much faster and gets less liters per hectare. So on a 40-meter sprayer, it is sort of very useful. What I usually do is, when I make a circle, I usually shut the inside boom off, which increases my overall pressure, and go quite slow, and then I can do a fairly decent job going in a circle. Other technologies on the sprayer for me are too much technology. As I said, this sprayer here is probably 50 years old. The machine is probably 50 years old. It has no electronic control unit, so that means there's no computer that can stop working, and the engine and transmission have been just absolutely wonderful here, with very little repair and very little expenses. I'll go in the cab right now and then we'll take a look at that. Okay, inside the cab, of course, it has air conditioning so that we can keep the door closed. Up here is a carbon filter, so that the air that comes from the outside going inside goes through a carbon filter, so that the chemical, of course, will hopefully get stuck to the carbon filter and not kill me in the cab. We also have, of course, a GPS. We used a signal that's for free. It's a WAS signal. This one is a Trimble, but there's many other kinds. This one is connected to what's called an easy steer. So once you've made your initial row, then you can put a rubber wheel on there, and then it steers the steering wheel. Of course, newer, fancier sprayers have this controller tied directly into the hydraulic system of the steering. This being a very old machine, of course the hydraulic is not available, and therefore this system works very well for us. This is the rate controller. This is a Raven rate controller that's probably 25 years old. It has worked extremely well, and with incredibly small little problems, it's been a really good one. This one can do up to 6 sections, but our sprayer is only connected to 3 sections. And then you can also punch in 2 different rates, which is nice because sometimes wheats are a little higher densities sometimes, and you can just flip it to a higher rate and increase your rate a little bit. And it works very well. The sprayer is old and loud, so usually wear headphones in here. And we also have a water tank on here so that we can wash our hands when we work on the nozzles and so on. We try to wear gloves, but yeah, sometimes working on nozzles with gloves is difficult. So this is the basic sprayer information that we have. For me, anything more complicated just causes more trouble. And like I said, the nozzles is the most important thing on any sprayer. That's what comes out, that controls the drift, that controls the rate and the uniformity of the pattern. And nozzles, I mean, of course the air induction is a little bit newer, but the basic hydraulic nozzle is probably since the end of the Second World War they had nozzles like that, so about 70 years. So that's, well, thank you for listening. Bye for now.